Hey everybody, it's Ricky Heller here from rickyheller.com, and I just want to check and make sure that I'm actually live. And if you can hear me, that would be great if you let me know. So um, today I wanted to talk about a question that I get a lot of the time, which is how long does it take to get better when you're dealing with candida? Before I start, I'll just introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. So as I said, I'm Ricky Heller, and I'm a holistic nutritionist and a writer and an educator. And I help people on anti-candida diets learn to love their food, eat well, so that they can heal their bodies, feel better, and get back to living their best lives while they're healing from candida. And so, as I said, this question that I get quite a lot is how long does it take to get better? And I think I think really, I'm just going to adjust this here. There we go. I think really the key is maybe asking a slightly different question. So, oh, I lost my page. Sorry, guys. I'm just going to assume that this is working. There we go. So I think the key is maybe asking a slightly different question. But before I do, it depends what you mean by get better. So I have a lot of clients who come to me, and I've noticed there are two types, basically two types of clients who come who want to deal with their candida. And the first kind of person is somebody who might come and say, I just can't stand these symptoms. I'll eat whatever, I'll do whatever, I'll take whatever supplements. I just want to get rid of this so that I can go back to living my normal life. And that's one kind of person. The second kind of person comes in and says, I have all these symptoms and I want to get rid of them too, but I just want to know what I need to do to be healthy. And I want to be healthy for the rest of my life. And I have to admit that, I was the first kind of client when I first went to my naturopath. Basically, what I had in my head was, I'm going to do this as long as I need to till all these horrible symptoms go away. And then I'll just go back to the way I was before. And I think it requires a little bit of a mental shift for most of us. So it's thinking not so much in the temporary, but as an overall lifestyle shift. So, you know, dealing with candida is not the same as if you get a cut on your finger, you put a band-aid on it, 2 weeks later, the skin's back to the way it was before. Or even if you think about major surgery, like gallbladder surgery, right? You have a recuperation period, and then you're more or less essentially back to your normal life. My friend, one of my best friends recently had a kitchen renovation. So for those of you who own your own homes and have done this, I'm sure you can relate. But everything was in disarray. It was crazy. They had to change the way they did everything. I think they were cooking on like a hot plate in the basement or what in a garage or whatever. But it was temporary. And then once the kitchen was done, they went back and their lives were sort of the way they were before. I think it's a little bit different with something like candida, and many of us don't realize that for most people who are diagnosed with candida related complex, this is a chronic sort of lifelong condition. So it's more like in the realm of something like diabetes, where it's certainly manageable, visible, discernible symptoms may all be gone, but you still have to do your part to keep that working properly, to keep that body working properly, to keep those symptoms at bay so that they don't come back and you don't have a relapse. And as most of you, many of you watching know, that's again what happened to me. So I think it's really important to understand that that's what we're dealing with. So that's going to change the question of how long does it take to get better. So to me, I think a really important distinction to be aware of in terms of this sort of healing path is the difference between healed and cured. So if you're looking at a cure, we're talking about a 100% eradication of whatever it is that's causing the symptoms, that's causing the illness. And I think of something like chickenpox, right? People get chickenpox, they get sick for a while, and then they're better and they don't have it again. They're basically, in effect, cured of chickenpox because their body now has antibodies. They're not going to be made sick with that same illness again. with something like candida, we're looking, I think we need to approach it more as a healing. So when I talk about healing, I think about maybe your symptoms are 100% gone, maybe they're not. You need to look at the whole picture. And hi, Jennifer, such great stuff. Ah, thank you. Oh, I'm glad you like the recipes. That's great. Yeah, I think anybody who's gone through candida themselves, they just don't want other people to ever have to experience the worst of it. And so I think that's really my motivation at the core. I think a lot of you know that I had a pretty bad situation when I was first diagnosed, or I should say second diagnosis in 2009, but that was a pretty bad situation. And yeah, that's kind of what got me started on this path and why I am so passionate about helping other people, because I know that it can be done even when you start from a really bad place. I know you can get better. And B, maybe I can save you some time and some heartache that I went through. So anyways, okay, so back to healing and curing. So I consider myself healed, but I certainly don't consider myself cured, because healing to me is someone who is back to a functional life, the maximum they're able to do. And so for me, that may even change in the future, or for some of you, but you feel good about your life. You feel like you're functioning well. You feel like you're doing all the things that you want to do. You're not allowing any vestiges of that condition to interfere with you living your life the best way you possibly can. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you've gotten rid of all your symptoms. Because as I said, I think candida is chronic. Why? Because it's a really wily organism. It hangs around in our body for very long term. We're able to keep it under control most of the time, but not necessarily eradicate it. There has to be some candida in the body, so we can't always get rid of all of it. So for me, the goal would be healing rather than curing. And certainly, if there is a cure, absolutely, that would be fantastic. I know, there are different levels of candida. So how long it takes you to get better will depend on how bad it was to begin with. Your environment. I've talked about all these factors so many times before. Your health history, your food, where you live in the world, your family history. Why? Because your mental state, your psychology, that all affects the chemistry in your body, and that all affects how well your immune system works and how well you can combat the candida and keep it under control. So there are myriad different factors at play, and for each person, it's a different combination of those factors that determines how long it takes you personally to get to the point where you feel healed. That said, if someone comes to me with a really mild case of candida, I've had clients who were better in 6 weeks, who came back to me and said, like, I can't believe everything that felt like it was wrong is gone and I'm totally fine now. And I usually want to cheer them on at the same time as trying to keep them from taking that as a sign that they can go back to the way they behaved before. Because even when you are so-called better, that's the point where you really need to maintain what you're doing. So this is a long-term process. It doesn't mean you're going to be battling candida consciously every day of your life forevermore, but it does mean you're going to have to be conscious of what you eat, how you think, your stress levels, all those factors that could cause a recurrence. So I often say I consider myself 90%, 90, 95%, I'm going to say healed from candida, but I do have relapses all the time, and they are different levels of relapses. And so, a couple of things. I know what my triggers are. For sure, stress is a huge trigger for me, so that we try to keep under control. But I also have discovered over 17 years of being on this diet in various levels of this diet. I've discovered for me that certain foods, as much as I love them, I can only consume in really small or infrequent quantities if I want to keep my symptoms from flaring up. So I had somebody email me the other day, one of my the people in one of my groups, saying that she was able to go out for a celebration, and she said, I ate some normal, I think she used the word normal food, meaning I ate some conventional food that night. And she actually didn't say that she felt fine. She said that the reaction was less than she had expected, and she was back on the diet. So she kind of knows her limits that way. There are people who can do the 80-20 rule once they are better. And, that means 80% of the time you follow the diet strictly, 20% you have whatever you want. I'm pretty sure I'm one of those people who, I know absolutely I'm never going to eat white sugar again. I'm never going to eat gluten again. Those are my two absolute no categories of foods. However, I may go back to having the occasional alcoholic beverage at some point because I think that has a little bit less impact on my body. But again, you're going to need to find what works for you. So it will depend. It will depend on how severe the candida was to begin with. It will depend on what your triggers are, all those different factors. For the majority of people with candida, at least this has been my experience with the people I've worked with and hearing from colleagues talking about other clients that they've had, for the majority of people, it's going to require a maintenance over time, which means you may get to a point where you feel great, where none of your symptoms are bothering you anymore. Yay, fantastic. But in order to maintain that, you're going to need to continue eating a certain way and possibly even using antifungals in a rotation, maybe once a month or something like that, or once every 2 months. Some people once every 6 months, something, the way you do a detox every spring and every winter, or every fall and every spring. So it's just a way to maintain at that point, but you will get there. So one rule of thumb I've heard, and this may or may not be encouraging, but for me, this was kind of a neat little formula that I thought was very useful, was that for every year you've been dealing with candida, it will take you 3 months of the program where you're like really strict with your diet, following your supplements, any prescription antifungals, whatever it is you're doing to clear your candida, that it will take 3 months per year that you've had candida. So for me, that was when I did the addition, it was like, oh my God, really? Like, I'm not going to be clear until when? But you know what? I'm living this way anyway. So that's kind of looking at how long it takes the body to heal itself. I think we also really underestimate the psychological component. So I think that's something else we need to look at. So in other words, how long will it take for you to get better? Depends on you. I think also if we change our mindset from curing to healing, that's going to be a much easier path, and it is going to feel faster because you can get to a point where you're healed and feeling good about your health and feeling good about your life much more quickly than you can get to a point where you're entirely cured, which means everything is back to this pristine condition of your body that you had maybe when you were a kid. So I hope that helps. If there are any questions, I'm unfortunately kind of I'm missing my extra computer today, so I can't see the screen except for the comments that come up. So if there are any other comments, let me know. I'm just checking on my phone here to see if I can see anything that's happening on our page. And let me know if there's anything I can ask live once I'm here anyway. So before I go, I did want to mention, as I said, I think for most of us, it's going to be really something we do for the rest of our lives. And one of the ingredients that for me was crucial to my success, that allowed me to stay on this diet without feeling like I was going to go crazy and missing all of my sweet treats, was, as some of you know, stevia, which is a natural sweetener. So if you're thinking about giving up sugar, if you're thinking about starting an anti-candida program, or if you've been having a bit of a struggle staying on the anti-candida program because you're having trouble with your sweeteners, I wanted to tell you about a free challenge that I'm starting next week. It starts on June 5th, 2017. I'm very excited about this because you guys know how much I love stevia, and that's what it's called. It's called the Love Stevia Challenge. So if you would like to join us, it's a free challenge for 7 days, and it's mostly through email. There's a sign up link. I'm going to put it in the comments just below or beside this video, but it's a bit.ly link. So bit.ly/love, all caps love, stevia challenge. And you can sign up. You'll get tips and tricks for using it. I'm going to talk about what are some of the most common mistakes people make with stevia, because I think that's why a lot of people end up not loving it, is they're not using it the best way possible. And also I'll be sharing recipes and, like I said, other tips and tricks and techniques to love stevia. So I hope you'll join me there. Let's see. Jennifer, yeah, I see Jennifer's comment. Any other questions before we go about healing, curing, stevia, anything before I head out? So let me know and I will be happy to answer them. It looks like I don't see any down here. Okay, so thanks guys for your time today. If this was useful, please do give it some likes or some hearts, and I will see you again in the next video. Thanks guys. Have a good day. Bye.